So if there's one thing I love, it's a great or even a good 3D platformer. And today I'm fortunate enough to be looking at Sphinx and the Cursed Mummy as it joins the Nintendo Switch family. This is actually a platformer hailing back from 2003. This thing, it was released on absolutely everything at the time. The PS2, the Xbox, PC, GameCube, Mac, Linux. And no one seemed to buy it. No one really remembers this one. So the question is it worth visiting this for the first time or even revisiting it 16 years later? Let's jump in and take a look. So before we do get started, if you are new here, do consider hitting subscribe. It truly is appreciated and we can't thank you enough. Now onto the game. Sphinx and the Cursed Mummy, if you haven't guessed, is set in ancient Egypt. Here we're going to be following two protagonists, from the name Sphinx and Cursed Mummy being Tutankhamun. Now just know he's not that glamorous looking here, just think more along the lines of that. Starting out the story, Sphinx is sent out to retrieve the Blade of Osiris. Now this is a legendary sword. You'll be taken to Uruk, or the charmingly nicknamed Land of Darkness. Here though, your colleague is killed and it's your mission to take down the evil Set. I've got to say, first of all, going back 16 years, it's great to have a game where it took me more than one sentence to summarise the storyline. And that's not even half of it. It's so different to what we get in 2019. Now you'll also have control here of Tutankhamun to make up the other 50%. You're trapped in Set's castle and you've been transformed from a boy on his birthday to a mummy following some jealousy from his brother around his birthday celebrations. It's pretty dramatic. The benefit for Tutankhamun though is he's already dead, so he can navigate these traps and dive deeper into the castle. Both characters, they must help each other to succeed. Tutankhamun is going to provide you with abilities and weapons. For Sphinx, there's a friend called Basket who can kind of travel somehow between the two. But in return, Sphinx, you're going to collect vases that slowly bring the Cursed Mummy back from the dead. Convoluted? It is, when you're trying to explain it honestly. Immersive? Definitely. This one's a lot of fun and I can just say entertaining? Absolutely. This story, it clearly took some real passion from the developers. In a time when 3D platformers were all the rage, they were clearly pushing to leave their mark on the genre. You just think back to around that time, 2001 to 2004, we had Jackson Daxter, Sonic Adventure 2, Conker's Bad Fur Day, Crash Bandicoot 4, Spyro, Rayman, Ratchet & Clank. That's some stiff competition, but I will say this does enough to be unique in a truly, at least at the time, crowded marketplace. And the story today is still super entertaining and ridiculous in all the right ways. So let's now move on to graphics, and this hasn't seen too much change. It's got a HD upscale and it's been optimized for widescreen, but it definitely shows its 2003 roots. With that being said, I think there's still a lot to like here. The characters, they're crisp, and the almost cel-shaded look of each individual model, it makes this the best version you're going to get, honestly, and probably the best one we'll ever see. This was definitely a great looking game back in 2003, and that's relatively clear here. Unfortunately though, like many games of this generation, the same can't be said for the environments. Now while they are not offensively bad, shall we say, it would have been nice to see just a little bit more effort go in here. The environments just lack any real texture, any real detail. They're kind of just like blurred in the background. It also really highlights the jagged edges of the world. It's a trait of the generation, sure, but it's just with the extra effort put into the character models and the interactive objects within these environments, it kind of highlights the problems even more. So gameplay and the make or break area, especially for a 3D platformer, and I'm going to just cut straight to the chase. This one, it's great. How is this game not more famous? I'll be honest, I know I played this back in the day, but I just remember nothing going in. I've got to say, its fun factor, as someone who can't really remember this, it just stands up to today. Gameplay, it comes in our two heroes with Sphinx and then the Cursed Mummy. Sphinx is particularly reminiscent of Zeldas of the past, clearing dungeons and environments with basically platform action and, of course, combat. And while there is a few puzzles, and they're definitely challenging, they're not frequent for Sphinx. Here you'll just spend a large time of your gameplay in combat, And the system, I've got to say, it's not bad at all. This is not Dark Souls, rather. It's a hack and slash at the enemies around you. We don't have auto target here or any of the luxuries we may be used to. Instead, this actually requires total player involvement. Then we have the cursed mummy himself, and it truly complements Sphinx gameplay perfectly. Gone are the combat options entirely, there's no combat at all, instead replaced with purely puzzles, obstacles and stealth. This is where Sphinx separates itself from the slew of 3D platformers we've had over the years. It's a truly unique feature, and that's the title mummy. That's a really good place to be unique. The mummy is already dead, for example, so he can take some serious damage. What I loved here was you got some weird, unusual options here. Definitely you can flatten him so he can squeeze to remote areas, carry electricity in your body to activate switches, or even just set him on fire so he can get through to his next wood-blocked path. It's a really interesting approach when in games we're so used to avoiding getting hit. Here we actively seek out ways to torture our hero in just the right way, all in the name of progression, and that's pretty cool, it's pretty unique. Puzzles for both Sphinx and the mummy can be challenging, but expect a lot more through the mummy sections. Here there's a real sense of accomplishment. It complements games of yesteryear for what they were. I would honestly love to just see developers be a little bit more confident in its gamers today, to not need so much hand-holding and direction. Finally, progressions will reflect in your character as you grow in ability. Functions such as jump, they can be evolved to double jump through in-game collectibles. It's nice to feel like you're constantly learning, constantly evolving here, and your character is never going to feel too much the same for too long. Finally, the camera, and you shouldn't be surprised, it's 90% okay, 10% painful. The camera gets stuck, it provides angles where you can't make the jumps, or at least see the line of jump you need to make. It frequently just positions itself in the most awkward angles for combat. No, wait, I'm up here. Perfect. I will say it doesn't detract from the title, just expect some moments of frustration here, definitely. Finally, audio, and generally, it's well done again, I've got to say. Keeping the original soundtrack, the music suits the environments, while reflecting the action-adventure nature of the game. You know, there's nothing too heavy in storyline here, so expect about the same from the music. Generally though, I'll say this, we have entertaining tracks that reinforce the action and puzzles. They basically range from just simple fun to more tense pieces. All of this does a great job of also embodying the Egyptian theme of the title. When it comes to sound effects, again, I'm pretty happy. There's nothing overly complicated here, but you can expect the environments to sound as, well, you'd expect. There's footsteps, there's interactions, there's combat sounds. All of it does a nice job of just building upon the world. Last, we've got dialogue, and there's a lot of dialogue in here, first of all. Unfortunately, expect to be reading it. There's no voice acting at all. I would have loved to have had this final layer of character development in place, but nope, this is purely reading time, so just go in with that anticipation. Some great looking cutscenes, some great characters. We'll just never know what they sound like. So Sphinx and the Cursed Mummy is a blast from the past. So often I play remasters with a memory of that game, or a certain level of expectation even, just because of my own nostalgia. Here, I had none going in, so it was refreshing to get what felt like a wholly new experience. So the game, for its age, it really does stand up well. If you can get used to some of the issues it has, you know, just problems of yesteryear, wonky cameras that comes with so many of these 3D platformers, some jagged edges on the graphics, no voice acting. But if you will put yourself through that, you're gonna find some really entertaining gameplay here. You've got two wholly unique characters, a well-developed storyline, an original IP that saw very little attention first time around, and let's face it, 99% of the time now, all we're seeing is sequel after sequel, so this, I've gotta say, it's a refreshing change. Unfortunately, another problem for me here though is the price point. At $29.99, this is not cheap, and that might be ambitious, honestly. A title like this finding release, that's awesome, I love it. But they need to attract buyers in on taking a risk. $29.99 is a big ask for a title that largely flew under the radar that first time around, and I hope that's not the case again here. For me, THQ Nordic, they need to question that pricing slightly, and I would feel totally comfortable saying $29.99 for the physical. Yes, there is a physical release of this, but then $19.99 for the digital. It seems a little bit more reasonable and probably in line with everything else of this age that's not Nintendo published on the console. If you do have the cash, I will say this, I'm confident you won't regret this investment. There's close to 15 hours of solid gameplay here, and I'm hard pressed to find anyone that would not walk out of this smiling. Today, we're giving Sphinx and the Cursed Mummy a 7 out of 10. If today's video does help you, then please consider hitting that like button, hit that subscribe button. It truly does not only help the video, but the channel. We do this for you and we appreciate every single one of you. We'll see you on the next video.